I'm not going to sugarcoat it when I say that I believe the Blitzer might just be the worst primary weapon in Helldivers 2. I know this is like a hot take, and I'm not saying it has zero benefits or that it isn't good at anything. I just think it's the worst at being a primary weapon. I do have my reasons why, but I feel like I should start off with the positives of the Blitzer. The best positive of this weapon is that it is a good option against the Terminids. The Blitzer, a short-range arc weapon that's entire purpose is to force enemies to back the fuck up, is good against a faction built on close combat. Who would have guessed? And considering the damage of the Blitzer is enough to one-shot most chaff Terminids, it does mean that this is a very good option. And even if you run into enemies that can't be one-shot, the stun that goes with the Blitzer is good enough to keep them at bay. Plus, the infinite ammo means you won't have to worry about resupplies as much. So to say the least, the Blitzer is good on the Terminid front. But that's where my praises end. The Blitzer is a one-trick primary, and when you bring the Blitzer to any other front, you will notice the major negatives that come to using this weapon. Let's start with the biggest problem with this weapon, being that you physically cannot aim with it. You cannot aim at any weak points that an enemy may have. The most you can do is look in the general direction and shoot, praying that the arc hits the enemy you want it to. But that's not the worst part. If there's remotely any object or coverage in the direction you're shooting, the arc will just divert into said object and the enemy you are aiming at will remain untouched. This also includes corpses, which the arc tends to aim off to. Now it doesn't sound too bad until you picture in the Automaton front, the faction that is quite literally built on weak points and unlike the Terminids, doesn't have to get close to you to kill you. Which brings me to the second problem, being the piss poor range this weapon has. With other shotgun-like weapons, you could at least shoot at a decent distance and still do good damage if you aim for the weak points. The Blitzer, on the other hand, cannot shoot at said decent range or aim for weak points. You have to practically be up the enemy's ass just to land hits with this weapon. And even then, since you can't aim for weak points, you are forced to slowly zap 1 to 2 enemies to death, which gives other enemies plenty of time to shoot you down. This leads me to the third problem, being the incredibly shit fire rate that this gun has. This shit fire rate is what prevents you from stunning multiple enemies, and you are instead forced to stun lock a single enemy. This also leads to you easily getting swarmed if too many enemies are present. And just to add a little extra salt onto the wound, the Blitzer can't aim for automaton mines. I don't know why, it just refuses to. What really makes the Blitzer bad is the fact that other primary weapons have some form of high skill potential. For example, the Pacifier, which is almost a complete opposite of the Blitzer, still does the job of stunning enemies with the addition of being able to aim for weak points. Hell, even the Constitution can be made efficient if you're skilled enough. The Blitzer doesn't have that high potential. But even for the weapons that don't require much skill, they can at least do a good job, unlike the Blitzer. Take the Purifier, for example, which while it doesn't require much aim or skill at all, can destroy all 3 factions. The Blitzer is just not a good primary weapon, and it doesn't even require aim. It is just a one-trick primary. Now, I don't feel like it would be appropriate to just end the video without giving out some idea on how to buff the Blitzer and make it more than just a one-trick primary. Of course, I don't want to remove the niche of the Blitzer being a short-range stun gun, so I won't ask for too much of a small range buff. But I feel like the buff that would honestly make this weapon really good is just give it some ability to aim. I'm not asking for it to be more precise than a sniper, but just enough so you can at least aim for weak points. But if that buff isn't an option, then I think just buffing the fire rate and stun would also make this weapon good without damaging its niche of short stun gun. Also, the Blitzer deserves to have more customizations than just some basic ass scope options. But let's be honest, none of that's gonna happen. So see ya.